Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a combo that I'm really excited to test. It's one that one of you guys suggested, and I have a feeling it's going to give us a pretty nasty looking pattern. Now right off the bat, I do apologize if I sound a little bit different than usual. I've had to make some changes in my microphone setup due to some recent staticky buzzing issues or whatever. I think I might have got those resolved, but bear with me if the microphone settings are still a little bit off. Either way, for the shells we brought in here today, I got out some more of the Herter's TSS loads. They are a 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 1.5 ounce payload of TSS 9-shot, moving about 1200 feet per second. And if you've been around the channel for any length of time, then you should know that the Herter's TSS loads are some fantastic performers no matter what gauge they're in. 12, 20, 410, they're all good, and they're very consistently reliable when it comes to getting good patterns through pretty much anything you put them through. Even though this is a 2 3/4 inch 1.5 ounce payload and a 12 gauge, we know these are some very nice performing shells, so I've definitely got high hopes for them through today's choke combo as well. But as for today's setup, I brought out my Remington 870 special purpose. It currently has a 24 inch Carlson's barrel on it, but for the choke, we've got a Hevi-Shot 662 constriction turkey choke in here. Now we've tested this once or maybe twice on the channel so far, and from what I remember, it's been a pretty solid performer so far for us, and with it being 662, it should work very nicely with these Herter's TSS loads. So I definitely expect to see a pretty nice looking pattern here out of this combination. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. The turkey target's at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from the shell. So let's get you guys a view of that target and see what these Herter's TSS 9s can do through the 870 and the Hevi-Shot 662. I've got some high hopes for it, but let's take our shot and see what kind of a pattern we get. Alright, so that shell gave us 1258 through the chrono. The boss claim is 1200, so out of that 24 inch barrel, we did see a little more than their claim, but mid 1200s is typically what we see from these shells anyway. 1230s to 1250s-ish range. So we're looking very much normal for a velocity, but how did they actually pattern through that Hevi-Shot 662? Let's go check it out and see. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and we have a pretty decent looking pattern on our hands here. Now right off the bat, yes, we do have a dead turkey. There are a bunch right around the eyeball there and several more down the spine, so yeah, you would have absolutely gotten that turkey. But we did favor our pattern a touch to the right, and now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I think that Hevi-Shot choke might just pattern a little bit to the right. I think it did the same thing the last time we tested it, so it could have been just me pulling it to the right, but different chokes and load combinations will shift your point of impact a little bit down here at 40 yards. Either way, that's why we use the backers, so we can see our full pattern, and the pattern is pretty solid. These Herter shells typically don't really care what choke or what constriction you put them through. They're gonna give you a more than usable pattern, but this one is a little bit funny compared to what we typically see out of them. Now moving in close here and looking at our main majority core area of the pattern, it's a beautiful, nice, even spread. Since we were just a touch to the right, I will go ahead and pop up a 10-inch circle equivalent right through our core area there so you can see what it looks like, and it is very nice and uniform and even in there. It's a hot core without being super baseball tight either, which we have seen plenty of times out of these shells, that super hot core. But that one, I really like it for a hunting pattern. More than enough pellets through there, but it does give you a nice little bit of buffer room, a little bit of leeway to play with, so I really like that for a hunting pattern through that core. There's really no voids in there to worry about or anything like that. Now moving out to the farther edges of the pattern, we definitely start to get a little bit sporadic. We have a couple of flyers to deal with, like up there at the top, but mainly right over here to the left side of this pattern, we get a bunch of random little splotchy stuff off the left side of that turkey paper there, which is not something we typically see out of these Herter shells. Usually, it's a pretty nice circular pattern that might have a handful of little flyers around the edges, but we rarely have seen any kind of splotchy edges that kind of just blew open off the side like that. Now, is that detrimental to this pattern? Definitely not. You would absolutely have a huntable pattern at 40 yards all day long, and that would do just fine at 45 and 50 yards as well. You're going to be more than good enough, but it's definitely not the most even pattern once you get outside of that initial core, and it's a little bit of an oblong shape over there off to the left. So it's definitely not the best performance we've seen from these Herter shells, although still, that is not a bad turkey pattern whatsoever. I would not be scared in the slightest to hunt with that pattern. It's more than capable for anything I would ever ask it to do, but I do think we have seen better combinations with these particular shells before. So overall here today, for this combination, it's definitely not a terrible pattern. If we didn't have that little bit of splotchy stuff over there off the left, if that was condensed down just a little bit more, we would have a beautiful hunting pattern there, no doubt about it. And even still, I really like that pattern for what it is. You've got a nice hot core, it's nice and even, it gives you leeway to work with, so no complaints there at all. Just a little bit interesting to see some of those edges flare out like that, which is not something we have seen from these shells. But still, a very solid performance overall. Nothing too big to complain about on that one. And here's the wad out of that shell. It's the typical Herter's orange colored, little shorter 2 3/4 inch style wad. They're pretty stiff, but they've got that little styrofoam piece down there in the bottom, so there's nothing stuck down in there. It looks very much normal overall. Definitely no major damage or anything like that. So I don't think there's anything too special to see here as far as the wad goes. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that performance right there? That's definitely a very solid turkey pattern. There's not a whole lot wrong with that. It is more than capable enough out at 40, 45, and you could push that to 50 yards and still be just fine with it. It might not be the tightest pattern we've seen from these Herter shells, but still, that's a very usable hunting pattern, no doubt about it. Now, around the edges, especially over there off the left edge of that turkey target, it does get a little bit splotchy, which is not something we typically have seen from these Herter shells. Usually they're a pretty nice and uniform shaped pattern. So I don't know, maybe not the perfect choke combo for them, since we've definitely seen better, but still that wouldn't be detrimental to your pattern at all if you were to use this combination. So I would definitely still hunt with it if that's the combination I had, because it would still do just fine. But I guess leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Herter shells or that Hevi-Shot 662 choke? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is that a good enough pattern that you would hunt with it, or do you still prefer another combination of stuff? And what other shells or choke combos do you want to see with either those Herter's TSS loads or that Hevi-Shot 662 choke? Let me know all that down below. So definitely not a terrible result here today, even though it's not quite the perfect combination we've seen from them. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description down below if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.